Good morning. Day 3. Day 3. Goodness me. So we've only got to day 3 and I'm struggling to count already. Well, today we've got lots of things for you, lots of activities to keep you busy, and we've got a special appearance from Mr. Smith at the end for the parents to talk through a little bit about what we do in school and how we ensure that children retain knowledge. So there's a lot to look forward to. Let's get on with it. We're going to begin, like we always begin, with Early Bird Maths. We know how it works now. This is our third day in a row of Early Bird Maths. We have questions for Year 3, 4, 5 and 6. And here are your questions. Right, well done on those questions. It is time for probably a lot of your favourite parts of these videos. It's time for a bit of recognition for those children that are working super hard at home. Now, we have had so much excellent work sent into us over the last few days that I've had to compile a list to make sure I don't forget, because there's been absolutely excellent examples. We will start with Dylan. Your Early Bird Maths work is here, and that was absolutely superb. Well done for that, Dylan. Fantastic effort, and thank you for sending that in. Next, we have the work of Harvey. Look at these. Now, Harvey took our recipe that we gave you on Monday's episode, and he's added his own change to it, and they look fantastic. I believe they're M&Ms, and it looks absolutely delicious. So well done, Harvey, and thank you for sending that in. Next, we have Declan from Year 4, who's been working really hard and he's sent so much work in. So well done to Declan. I particularly enjoyed your drawing from the descriptive writing work we did on Monday. Great job, well done. Next we have a duo, a team. It is Sydney and Leo. And well done for your fantastic work. Thank you for tuning in. And some great fraction work and description work from Sydney especially. Great job, well done. And this example of work here is from Matilda. She has completed some work from her home learning pack of a very strange, very peculiar is one of our word of the days, remember? A peculiar situation, and she's wrote a wonderful diary extract from it. So, excellent Matilda, what a wonderful job you've done, great. And we have a bit of artwork now from Abigail. Well done, Abigail. In our area, we've seen a lot of these rainbows around that's been placed in windows. And it's a wonderful initiative, and it's great to see so many of you having a go at home. So well done, Abigail. What a wonderful piece of artwork you've made. Great. And next we have Ilana. Ilana sent in so much work, and it was fantastic to see, and it was beautifully presented too. So Ilana, you sent us in a message all the way from Manchester. So well done to you. I'm so pleased with what you've been able to produce. Plus, your notebook looked great. It had a cat on there. We know Mr. Bletcher is a big fan of cats. They're even on his tie today. So, great job, Alana. Well done. And another shout out to Amelie. Your work was absolutely fantastic. You sent in. So pleased with how many examples of onomatopoeia you could find. So, great job, Amelie. And next up we have the work of Jessica, which is somewhere here now. Jessica, you found the most examples of onomatopoeia out of everyone, of all our learners yesterday. So well done, special recognition for you, Jessica. Super stuff. Great. And we've got even more examples of work here in the studio. It's like something out of X Factor or Pop Stars or something. We're going to show some of the work that you sent in now. Here we go. And remember, if you would like to send in your work, the email will appear here. We'd love you to keep sending it in. Even if you think, oh, I've already sent some in, keep sending it in. We'd love to see it. And it's great to see what you're doing at home. So keep it up and keep sending to that email below. Even if you are new, okay, maybe new today, or even in a different school, or anywhere in the world, we'd love to hear from you. The email is below. Hello and welcome to Countdown. We know how to play. We're going to give you some letters. Can you think of the largest word you can that is a real word? Okay, and we will be checking. We'll give you these letters, which is a mix of vowels and consonants, and see how many words and what large words you can make. Start the clock. Right, on to maths now. And well done in your efforts with working with fractions this week. We're making really good progress already. But we're going to make it a little bit more difficult today. And here is our problem today. We have 1/4 plus 1/3. And here is this problem represented in a different way, like this. Now, using the work we did yesterday, we would think of how could we change 4 into a 3, or how could we change 3 into a 4? Well, thinking about the 3 times table or the 4 times table, that can't be done. So for our solution, let's look at those timetables. Let's look at the 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and so on. Let's look at the 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. Look closely at those. Is there anything that they have in common? Anything that's the same? Ooh! I've got it! 12. 12 is a multiple of 3. 12 is a multiple of 4. So, we're going to use that to help us today. 1/4. How can we turn that into 12s? Because if we can turn them both into 12s, then we'll have the same denominator. And that's what we need. So, how do we turn a 4 into a 12? 4, 8. We multiply it by 3. So, we need to multiply the numerator by 3 to get an equivalent fractions. 1 times 3 is 3. So we got 3 12s. Now let's take a look at the other one. 1/3. We need an equivalent fraction of a third that's in 12s. So how do you get from 3 to 12? 3, 6, 9, 12. We multiply by 4. And we need to do the same to the top. So 1 times 4 is 4. So if now, can we do 3 12s, add 4 12s? We know in our answer the denominator remains the same, so it's still going to be in 12s. 3 add 4 is... You didn't call it out. You didn't call it out. Or if you did, I didn't hear you. Maybe shout it. Maybe not, actually, you'll get in trouble. 3 add 4 is... 7. Very good. So 1/4 plus 1/3 equals 7 12ths. Now take a look at the picture I'm about to show you to show that when we convert it into 12ths, we can see that it's 7 12ths. So today is all about finding a common denominator. Okay, when you look at the denominators in the questions today, work through those times tables and see if there is a number that is the answer in both times tables. Then that will really help. Here's another example on screen to help you understand this concept. Now, here are your questions for today. And remember, if you're struggling, that's fine. We're supposed to struggle. We're not supposed to find everything easy, otherwise we won't be learning. So, just think about your times tables and think about finding a common denominator. Here are your questions. Off you go. So, now it is time for literacy, and in literacy, we know we're working on setting descriptions. We've done a little bit about listening to setting descriptions. We've done a little bit about it's hard to say, onomatopoeia, there we go. And now we're going to do a little bit on similes. Like I said before, we're going to give you a little bit of each skill through the week, and by the end, I'm sure we'll be able to produce some wonderful writing. So, similes it is, and similes are used to compare. We use it in descriptions to compare. And there's two ways we do this. Bring up the board, ta-da! Similes. We use like and as. For example, his eyes were as blue as the deep ocean. So it's a comparison, and it gives you some information about his eyes. Now, it doesn't just say, his eyes were blue. No, that's boring. If we can use as, we can bring our description to life. The sun was as bright as... Can you think of one? So we've had a quick look at as. Now we can use like. We could say, he fell like a tree in the deep, dark, enchanted forest. Boom! There's your onomatopoeia as well. So I have another example for you now. And it says, he came to the rescue like a knight in shining armour. Ooh, how heroic. Now, we can make this better, but without changing a single word. What? Without changing a single word, how can you improve it? Well, here's how. Now, I did say I wasn't going to change any of the words, okay, but I would make it better. And here's how I've done it. We have, like a knight in shining armour, he came to the rescue. Now, I said I wouldn't change any of the words, but I've managed to make my sentence better. And here's how I've done it. It says, like a knight in shining armour, he came to the rescue. All I've done is start with my simile, start with that description, and I think it sounds even better. But it's also important not to start every example of a simile with the phrase itself. You could move it around, mix it up a bit to make your writing lovely and varied. And here's my example using as in our simile. We have, she reached for the portal as quick as a flash. Or, as quick as a flash, she reached for the portal. They both work really well. Now, time for your task. What I'd like you to do is, can you think of 3 simile sentences that have the word like in them, and 3 simile sentences that have the word as in them? Experiment with whereabouts in the sentence your simile is to make sure your sentences are varied and really intriguing. Remember to read your work back, and hopefully if you've done a really good job, you'll be able to picture what you've wrote in your head, a bit like we did with those books earlier in the week. Right then, off you go. On to geography now, and we're going to take a look at the continent, not the content, although we will be learning content, of course, but we're going to be looking at the continent of Africa, which you can see here, okay, and we're going to explore some map reading skills. So, first of all, we need to think about a compass. A compass has 4 main points. Okay, this one is the north. We then have the east, the south, and the west. And the way to remember it is never eat shredded wheat. Okay. North, east, south, west. But not only that, those 4 points, we have more. We have these ones that sort of look like diagonal. Now this one is between the north and the east, so is known as northeast. This one is between the east and the south, so it's known as southeast. We have one between the south and the west, known as southwest, and one between the north and the west, known as northwest. So, take a look at this image of Africa that I'm about to show on screen now. So, using these points of a compass, we can describe the location of countries in Africa. For example, in the south, it's South Africa, but it's pretty self-explanatory, that one. But in the northeast, you'd find Egypt. Here's what I want you to do. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to find out which country I'm talking about. Then, when you've found out the country, can you name me 3 facts about that country? So, let's go on with the first question. Country number 1 is west of Libya. What country is that? When you find it out, give me 3 facts about that country. Country number 2 is northeast of Tanzania. Which country is it? 3 facts, please. Then, country number 3, find a country that is in the northwest of Africa. Any of those countries that you find in the northwest, and give me 3 facts about it. It will be great to hear all your facts because we'll share them in tomorrow's episode, so we can know a lot more about these countries that we've been searching for. Right, on to some reading now, and I must apologise for yesterday's reading because when the questions appeared on screen, they didn't appear how I wanted them. They were hard to read. So I do apologise for that. We'll make sure that's fixed today. But we're carrying on with the Explorer. We're still on chapter 2, and today's question will be an explanation question. And explanation questions, you must tell us why. Use evidence, okay? Evidence from the text to tell us why something is happening or why something has occurred. Okay, so we're going to read on from where we were in chapter 2. I'll be honest with you, I have tried to film this segment already with the screen in the background, but then the cat was behind, moving things around. It wasn't very good. So that's bad Carlos the cat. He's now out somewhere else in the house, okay, because we can't have that Carlos. We're trying to make an incredibly successful YouTube show here. Right, where were we? Let's find it. So, hi! Fred tried to smile, but it made the cuts on his cheeks stretch and burn, so he stopped and made do with a grin that involved only the left half of his face. Max was at the breathless stage of crying, and he clung to his sister so tightly his fingers were pressing bruises on her skin. She was leaning over to one side to hold him up, shaking with the effort. They looked, Fred thought, like a two-headed creature, arms entwined. "Is your brother badly hurt?" he asked. Lila patted her brother desperately on the back. "He won't talk, he's just crying." Con looked back towards the fire and shivered. The flames cast a light on her face. She was no longer blonde. Her hair was grey with soot and brown with blood, and she had a scratch on her shoulder that looked deep. "Are you all right?" he asked, wiping rain out of his eyes. "That cut looks bad." "No, I'm not all right," Con spat. "We're lost in the Amazon jungle, and statistically speaking, it's very likely that we're going to die." "I know." Fred didn't feel he needed reminding. "I meant... So no." Con's voice grew thin and high. "I think it would be safe to say that none of us are all right. Not at all. Not even slightly." The bushes rustled. The rain hammered down on Fred's face. "We need to find shelter," he said. "A big tree or a cave or something that would..." "No!" Max gave a sudden scream, a yell that was wet with spit and fear. Fred stepped backwards, raising his hands. "Don't cry," I just thought. Then his eyes followed Max's pointing finger. There, 3 inches from Fred's shoes, was a snake. It was speckled brown and black, patchwork to match the jungle floor, and its head was as big as a fist. Simile, as big as a fist. We've got one. For 1 second, nobody breathed. The jungle waited. Then Max let out a second scream that dug deep into the night, and the four of them turned and fled. The ground was sodden, and they ran pell-mell, sending up mud into one another's eyes and grazing their elbows against trees. Fred ran as if his body were not his own. Faster than he'd ever run, his palms stretched ahead of him. He tripped over a root and turned a full somersault. Coming up splitting earth, he ran on. The rain blinded him, and shadows flashed past him in the darkness. There was a yell behind him. "Please, Max!" said Lila. Fred turned back, skidding in the mud. "He won't run!" Lila bent over her brother. "And I can't carry him!" The little boy lay on his back, weeping up at the sky, his whole body shaking in the driving rain. "Come on!" Fred heaved Max over his shoulder. The boy was far heavier than he'd expected, and he screamed as Fred lifted him. But Fred grabbed both of Max's knees and started running. His whole body screamed with pain. He could hear Lila, her feet thumping close behind them. The stitch in Fred's side was almost unbearable when he tore out of the trees and into a sudden clearing. He halted, and Max bumped his head against Fred's spine and yelled. Angrily, he began trying to bite one of Fred's shoulder blades. "Please don't," said Fred, but he was barely paying attention to the boy on his back. He stared, stunned, ahead of him. They were standing at the edge of a wide circle of trees, open to the sky and lit by the fat moon. There was a carpet of green moss and grass, and the stars above them were clustered so thickly that the silver outnumbered the night. Fred lowered Max to the ground and stood bent over, his hands on his thighs, panting. "Did the snake chase us?" said Max. "No," gasped Con. "How do you know?" wailed Max. Lila dropped to her knees, clutching at her side. "Snakes don't, Maxie. We both know that. I just panicked," said Con. Her voice was bitter. "That's what happened, see? Look, no snakes. We were stupid. Now we're even more lost." The ground in the clearing sloped slightly towards a large puddle of water. Fred crossed over to it, his muscles aching, and sniffed. It smelt of rotting things, but he was feverishly thirsty. He took a tiny sip and immediately spat it out. "No good," he said. "It tastes like a dead person's feet." "But I'm thirsty," said Max. Fred looked around the clearing, hoping to find water before Max started crying again. "If you wring out your hair," he said, "there'll be water in it." He tugged his dark fringe down over his forehead and twisted it. A few drops fell on his tongue. "It's better than nothing." Max chewed on his hair for a second, then scrunched his eyes closed. "I'm scared," he said. It was sad, without whining, a simple matter of fact. Somehow it was worse than the tears, Fred thought. "I know," Lila said softly. "We all are, Maxie." She crossed to her brother and pulled him close to her. His small bony fingers closed over a burn on her wrist, but she didn't brush him away. She began to whisper in his ear in Portuguese, something soft, almost a song, a lullaby. They were both shaking slightly. Fred swallowed. "All this will look less bad in the morning," he said. "Will it?" said Con. There was bite to the question. "Will it really?" "It can't look much worse," he said. "Once it's light, we'll be able to work out a way to get home." Con looked hard at him. There was challenge in the look, and Fred stared, unblinking, back at her. Her face was all geometry. Sharp chin, sharp cheekbones, sharp eyes. "What now, then?" she said. "Our Mama and Papa say," began Lila. The mention of her parents made her face crease and crumble, but she swallowed and went on. "They always say you need to sleep before you think. They say when you're exhausted, you do stupid things. And the scientists. So we should sleep." Fred found his whole body was aching. "Good, fine, let's sleep." He lay down on his side in the wet grass. His clothes were soaked through, but the air was warm. He closed his eyes. Perhaps he would wake up in his bed at school, he thought, next to the snoring of his roommates, Jones and Grace. An ant crawled over his cheek. "But aren't we supposed to stay awake in case we die of concussion?" said Con. "I think if we'd got concussion we'd be dizzy," said Lila. Fred, already half asleep, tried to work out if he was dizzy. The world began to spin away from him. "If we all die in the night, I'm blaming both of you," said Con. It was on that cheering thought that Fred felt himself dropping down, down away from the jungle and the thick night air, and into sleep. End of the chapter. Wow, a lot happened there. Here is your explanation question that we talked about earlier. And that's all we have for today, day 3 of Mr. Bletcher Home School. But during the day, please send in your work. We'd love to see it. It's absolutely fantastic.